Can I turn this feature off? No. While we try to give players the option to toggle certain gameplay features, LGBTQIA+ identities are a fact of life and not a toggle to be switched on and off. That's an interesting approach for them to say that. Wow. I mean, I agree, but that is very brave of them to say that. I mean, it's going to piss off a lot of people, but I mean, as it should. Yeah, the stream is over, but we aren't done yet. The Sims team has just released a brand new blog post all about sexual orientations coming to The Sims 4. They did answer some questions in their deep dive live stream from today, but there were many questions left unanswered and a lot of concerns from Simmers as well. We're gonna talk more about that a little later, but first we're gonna dive into a discussion and reaction for the brand new blog post. I have not read it yet. I figured since I had the camera on, my green screen up, my lights on, and all this for the stream, that I would just, record it like this instead. All right, sexual orientation in The Sims 4. New update to feature sexual orientation in Create a Sim. And this is so cool. I am still so shocked about this. And my mind was blown last night when I saw the leaks. My mind was still blown today during the deep dive live stream. And now even seeing this and reading it still doesn't feel real. It seems too good to be true. I'm sure there's gonna be some quirks and bugs with it, but I do want to mention that in the stream, the Sim Gurus did say that this is level 1 base at launch, which means they're going to be expanding on this in the future. They said that there will be improvements, that this will evolve. We don't know in what ways. I'm pretty sure more is going to come for non-binary Sims because the system right now seems very binary, and that's why a lot of Simmers were starting to raise fuss in the chat of their official live stream. They were like, well, what about the non-binary Sims? It just has the male and female checks, and yes, you can check both, but some don't identify as either. And I'm sure that that is part of the reason why they mentioned that they're going to build on it, because they do have hopes in improving that and branching out in the future. Part of me does think maybe they should have waited a little longer to introduce that until that was implemented, though I still am happy that we are getting something like this, and it is coming in the base game for free for everyone. So, sexual orientation in The Sims 4. Hi folks, I'm Sim Guru Jessica, the design lead on The Sims 4 High School Years expansion pack. Today I'd like to talk to you about the upcoming sexual orientation feature that will be available in the next base game update. So I'm assuming that the next base game update, is the one that is coming before The Sims 4 High School Years, which does make sense. Past, present, and future. As a team, we hold creativity, discovery, inclusivity, and play as core values and strive every day to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion for our people and community. This is something I feel like they say all the time, so we know that's true. With that in mind, we're delighted to bring the sexual orientation feature to all Simmers. Between this update and the recent pronouns update, which was yet another huge game-changing feature that I was shocked at seeing them add, to be honest, but now we have that, and now we have this, and that's what started to raise a lot of confusion from Simmers. Like, okay, you gave us the pronouns update, so we have the ability to make non-binary Sims, but now with the sexual orientations, the non-binary is not included in that, so it's kind of like taking one step forward and then taking 2 steps back. But we know that they're going to improve on that, but still, these additions this far late into The Sims 4, that's huge, guys. Like, that is absolutely massive. We're like, what, 8 years into the release of this game now at this point? Like, this is crazy. We're taking several strides forward into being a game that respects and celebrates the nuance and color of everyday life, and we knew that, and that's great. It is important to acknowledge that these are steps in a journey that we are still mapping out. There is much further to go, and while I can't get into the details of where exactly we go next, please know that we are committed to continuing to improve our representation for the LGBTQIA+ community, and we We knew that. They've been saying that over and over and over and over again. Those are our values. Those are our morals. This is the direction we want to push the game towards. And I live for that. There's nothing wrong with inclusion and representation. Recently with werewolves, they introduced body scars, and one of the sim gurus even addressed it, saying that it was something that they were going to send to the team and hopefully, I guess, talk about. Those weren't the exact words, but that's what it was kind of alluding to. Those types of things being in discussion, where maybe we could see top surgery scars for trans sims. Something like that would be really nice and inclusive as well. All right, moving on. Authenticity is a point that often comes up in regards to features like this, and rightly so. As such, I'll try to peel the curtain back a bit and speak to our efforts in making sure we got this right. Many members of the team, myself included, are part of the LGBTQIA+ community. That said, each one of us on the team represents only a narrow slice of lived experiences. As such, we've worked extensively with GLAAD and the It Gets Better project to ensure that we've captured the widest possible range of viewpoints on how to approach this feature in a manner that respects and elevates the community. Perfectly said, absolutely. And I'm glad that they are collaborating with other organizations to make sure that they implement these things correctly and in a way that doesn't offend anyone. That's definitely very important. Yes, they could have done this by themselves. My throat decided to just give up on me there, sorry. Yes, they could have done all of this by themselves, but I feel like it doesn't hurt to partner with the GLAAD and It Gets Better project. All right, so up next, how it works. With sexual orientation, you'll be able to assign a series of attraction parameters for your sim. Pictured below is how the sexual orientation feature will appear in Create a Sim. So Sim Guru George and Sim Guru Jessica did show off in the stream that there is a little tiny detail right under where you select if your sim is a male or female, 3 little dots that pull up more details. One showing gender and a new tab now for sexual orientation. This sim is romantically attracted to, you can check men or women or both. This sim is exploring romantically, yes or no. And there's also another option here. This sim is interested in mess around with men or women. So you could totally have asexual sims or aromantic sims that you actually set into the mechanics of the game, which is such a cool thing that we've never been able to experience or play around with in the Sims franchise. Like, that is amazing. So for example, a sim could have no interest at all in romance, but want to mess around with men or women or just men. Maybe they want to date a man romantically, but mess around with women. Whatever the possibility is, you can now do that in The Sims 4, and that's actually incorporated into the mechanics of the game. Before, these things, I guess, could exist, but just in your imagination. But now all of that is in the system for CAS. It's pretty darn cool if you ask me. All right, so the next section here, my sim is attracted to. This is a simple affirmative statement of who your sim is attracted to. If a sim whose gender doesn't match your sim's attraction settings attempts a romantic interaction with your sims, they will be rejected, as they should. You can check any combination of attraction boxes, including all or none, to reflect your sim's romantic orientation. Further down the line, we'll be able to expand this to include additional gender identities that we don't have at this time. So like I said, they're building on this. There is more to come with this feature over time. I understand that there will be concerns here around the initial options being gender binary, and I saw them nearly instantly. Mechanically, non-binary sims don't yet exist in The Sims 4. While we made great progress in representing non-binary sims with the pronouns update, we acknowledge that pronouns are not the same thing as gender identities. We recognize that we still have a ways to go in this regard. I'll cover that more in the frequently asked questions. So admitting here yet once again, they realize this is an issue, but they're making progress to make that available to us. But I'm glad that they're being open and transparent with us instead of just saying, all right, here's an update, it's binary, enjoy, have fun, and then they leave simmers in the dark. They're not doing that. So I'm very grateful for that. Up next, my sim is exploring romantically. This setting controls whether or not your sim's sexual orientation can shift through gameplay. There are 2 major stories we wanted to capture with this setting. The first is the story of a person who has figured out about who they are and has a firm and immutable sense of who they're attracted to. This is reflected by a sim who is not exploring romantically. Sims set to no for exploring will not shift orientation through gameplay and firmly reject advances from genders they aren't interested in. That is cool. Allowing our Sims to have a period in their life where they want to explore and experiment. I love that. The second story is about a person who's still figuring things out. Sims with exploring set to yes will still have an initial sexual orientation setting per the previous step, but it can change through gameplay. As your Sim experiences romantic interactions, they may find themselves in a very different place than where they started, giving us more detail in the gameplay, allowing us to experiment in the game. Yes, we've always had this option, in our imaginations, but now we can see it for ourselves and play it through. That is so cool. Gosh, do not get me wrong. After watching that deep dive live stream, and I mentioned this so many times, I was so happy with what we were seeing, but I could not get my mind off of this patch. I want the patch more than anything else. I feel like the pack is going to be good, but this patch is going to be something different. The next one, my Sim is interested in woohoo with. This setting determines who your Sim can woohoo with. If you're trying to tell the story of an asexual Sim, you could leave all options unchecked. On the flip side, you could tell the story of an aromantic Sim by selecting woohoo interest, but leaving romantic attraction boxes unchecked. More on this in frequently asked questions. Again, more variety, more options, more inclusion. I love that. You can also tell even more specific stories, such as a Sim who might be attracted to multiple genders, but only interested in physical intimacy with one. Yes. All right, cool. So now we have the frequently asked questions section. But here's what I want to know is, how do we have frequently asked questions when this was literally just announced an hour ago? You're telling me they looked through everything and wrote all this up, or is this just frequently asked questions that they've made up? Because there's no way this blog post published while the stream was live. There's no way they were looking through everything that they were seeing in the chat and typing all this up live. So I don't know who was asking these questions. It definitely wasn't from the community, but at least things are being answered. Do I need to own high school years to use sexual orientation? No, absolutely not. Sexual orientation will be available to all Simmers upon the release of high school years, as it should. I would be devastated if they paywalled something like this. This is definitely a base game feature, and I'm happy it's coming to everyone. Why are there only 2 gender options? This is a natural question to ask given that we just recently released the pronouns update. I'll try to be very transparent with this one. This is due to technical limitations. As stated above, mechanically non-binary Sims don't yet exist in The Sims 4. You still have to make a binary gender selection for your Sim at creation, regardless of pronoun settings. We hope that we've shown our commitment to improving representation of gender identities with features such as gender customization, which allows you to modify physical frame, clothing preferences, pregnancy, and toilet use options. We look at the pronouns update as another important step towards better representation of non-binary genders, but we also acknowledge that pronouns are not the same thing as gender identities, which is also very true. The Sims 4 is 8 years old at this point and relying on systems that were originally architected with a gender binary in mind. In the intervening years, we've taken important steps such as gender customization, pronouns, and now sexual orientation. It's a journey still in progress, with many more steps to go. Proper mechanical systems to fully support non-binary Sims is another step in that journey. These are definitely great answers to questions from the community, or possible questions, because I don't know who was asking this when this article was written, because I mean there was a leak, but nothing official was announced probably when they were writing this, but you get my point. These are great answers, How do I woohoo on a Sim that isn't interested in romance with anyone? Super important question, since woohoo is typically gated behind romance. To better reflect aromantic Sims and a greater variety of lifestyles, we've added the ability for young adult Sims and older to ask close friends to be woohoo partners. So they're basically adding friends with benefits, like an actual friends with benefits system system in the interactions pie menu in the game in live mode. Like, that is so freaking cool. And that whole mechanic is going to be a part of the sexual orientations feature coming with Cass. If they accept, you can now perform woohoo without the romance prerequisites. Stress on the if they accept part, as with many socials of this nature, it can fail and lead to an awkward conversation afterward. So I guess, yes, it's possible that a sim could ask another sim they don't have much of a relationship with. Maybe they're strangers, maybe they're neighbors, maybe they're ex-boyfriend and girlfriends. You know, they could ask, but the chances are going to be there for them to say, no, I don't want to hook up with you. But if you have some sort of friendship, or maybe even if you're just slightly acquaintances, the chances of them saying yes versus no is probably a lot higher. I want to again acknowledge that these topics are complex and full of nuance. We consider this version a 1.0, so it's a base. They're going to build on this. This is not the final product, but also remember, they have said that about other features that we received in the past, like the neighborhood stories. They gave us a base layer, then they added on to that, and I'm sure that there's even more layers coming onto that in the coming months, maybe even the coming years. So the same thing is going to happen here. They're going to add way more onto this, and are absolutely looking forward to seeing what further tools we might add to allow players to tell a broader range of stories. So the possibilities really are endless. They can add so much more to this. The question is, will the game be able to handle it? Because we've been at The Sims 4 for how many years? It's kind of getting unstable at this point. The engine is just so bogged down with all the packs. I'm just worried that the more things they add, the more things will stop working correctly. So I hope things are added and they actually work properly. And I say that because, you know, we recently had My Wedding Disaster, and that totally did not work out very well. But I have hopes that the Sims team will fix this, because from the deep dive live stream today, things looked pretty smooth, at least with the mechanics of going to class, leaving, the prom, everything looked very, very, very smooth. There was one sim that started doing crunches, sit-ups, all that stuff, but it was just one sim and it was one time. So I have high hopes and I have faith in them. I think that things are going to turn out good for the future, not just with that pack, but with other packs, and also future updates for the sexual orientations. All right, can I manually change my Sims' sexual orientation after creation? Yes, you can use the change sim interaction on a mirror or dresser to access Cass, and therefore you'll be able to change any of these settings manually. Awesome, perfect, just as I expected. Now, where do I find this setting? In Cass, under the ellipsis beneath gender selection. So those three little dots, which is an ellipsis. I knew that thing had a name and I didn't know what it was. How will this impact my game if I don't change the sexual orientation settings? If you change none of the sexual orientation settings, your Sims will romantically behave as they currently do prior to the release of this feature. So if you don't touch any of this, leave that first one blank and the bottom one for men and women and the second one for yes, that is default for how it normally is before this. So you don't have to use this feature. A lot of people are asking, is there a way to turn it on or turn it off? It's automatically off by default, but it turns on when you change the settings. So how it is now, as you see it here, is exactly the default that it would be. So I like that. They're definitely thinking all of these things through. They do continue from their previous bullet point for sexual orientation settings below the picture. Sims prior to sexual orientation essentially use the above setting. They have no inherent attraction to a specific gender. They can have their attraction shift through gameplay, and they will woohoo with any gender. This is still the default state for a new sim. Like I said, how it appears right there in that image. One more, can I turn this feature off? No. While we try to give players the option to toggle certain gameplay features, LGBTQIA+ identities are a fact of life and not a toggle to be switched on and off. That's an interesting approach for them to say that. Wow. I mean, I agree, but that is very brave of them to say that. I mean, it's going to piss off a lot of people, but I mean, as it should. But it's definitely a very true statement. You can't just turn something like that on and off. If you want the game to basically behave how it was before this update, just leave the settings how they are. It doesn't need an on and off feature, so there's really no issue. They do have here, in conclusion, we're thrilled to let you all experience this feature for yourselves. Please share your thoughts with us on socials as we continue building toward a more inclusive future together. So let me know what you think about all of this down below, the sexual orientations, the deep dive live stream. It's really looking up, guys. guys. Curve walls are confirmed. This whole thing is confirmed. What else have they talked about? The body hair, the shaving, all that's confirmed. We saw that in the deep dive stream today. They're giving us so much. The hair growth is a part of the pack. It's not a part of the free patch, but still, that is so cool that you can shave. It grows back. You gotta shave it off. And you can enable it or disable that if you want, which is cool, but that is so cool. I love it. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. If you like this camera stuff, I'll definitely do more of it often. I'm using one of my newer photography cameras now, and it definitely looks a lot better. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. So long and happy simming. Bye, guys. This video was brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you'd like to join my community over there, a link is below. Thank you for watching.